So you went to Spain then, sorry, after your degree and after the masters. But what we've when we were doing our research on you, Ronan, we saw your pieces where you were Pepe Mel's interpreter, a name from the past at West Brom. So were you part of his backroom staff almost? Did he fly you over, or how was your career path? You went from contacting agencies in Spain to ending up at the Hawthorns. What happened in between, sort of?
Yeah, sure. So that actually that was something that came up. That sort of gig, as it were, came up when I was actually in the process of studying for my masters. So the masters I did down in London, and this came up. I think Mel was interpreted in the was appointed in the January. And I got a call from one of the agencies who knew that I was sort of based in the West Midlands, although I was actually down in London at the time. But my where I'm from is the West Midlands. So I was asked if I'd be interested in the opportunity, and it was one that I obviously jumped at. I mean, it was anyone who's sort of done any sort of masters, I guess, but the masters in interpreting, which is a 1-year course, is quite an intense year. So if you throw in, having to travel around the country, remember sort of long away days to Norwich, for example, comes to mind. Throwing all of that travelling in was quite demanding, but yeah, it was certainly a great year.
Were you travelling sort of with the team, on the team coach, as it were, or?
No, I didn't. Well, I think that only happened when we caught a flight, which is, of course, that's been in the news recently. Teams catching flights in the UK. I think it was Sunderland away. I think so. That was one that the team flew to, and yeah, did travel with the on the flight with the team there. But no, other than that, it was either travelling sort of with the media guys, so from the club's sort of media department, or a case of just making my own way there. Yeah.
So it was just mainly the press conferences on the match days you're working with West Brom. You weren't on the training ground. Was that someone else doing it, or it was just in front of the public-facing media that he needed the interpreter?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so in my case, it was just the sort of the pre-match press conferences and then the post-match press conferences. So in Albion's case, I seem to remember they were on Thursdays, the pre-match press conferences. So those were there at the training ground. So that's a typical sort of standard pre-match press conference. Usually lasts about sort of an hour and a half or so, and then on match days were the typical sort of flash interviews pre-match, and then the post-match press conference as well. In terms of the training ground, it wasn't really needed on the training ground. There was someone, I know you asked before about sort of backroom staff, there was someone within sort of Albion's existing backroom staff who had some Spanish, and also Pepe Mel ended up bringing, he brought a fitness coach over who had quite a good command of English. So yeah, but again, I think sort of whenever I'm sort of asked that question, whether or not I had to dust my boots off and get out on the training pitch, I think probably football's quite a universal language. So I know certainly that some interpreters have been used out on the training pitch, but I suppose essentially maybe you could say all football drills are pretty much the same, or the players are quite savvy in terms of what sort of things they'll be asked to do. Plus there were also some members of that Albion squad who were Spanish speakers and had been sort of in England for had been in England for a good few years, I think. So